Comrades and friends, as Comrade David North in his opening speech already explained, Karl Marx, the mighty thinker and revolutionist, blazed the path for the socialist emancipation of the working class by revealing the objective foundation and logic of its struggle against the deprivation of capitalism. Among the most searing and scathing of Marx's writings were his exposures of the violence, banditry, duplicity by which the British bourgeoisie subjugated and economically bled the Indian subcontinent, or in contemporary parlance, South Asia, the crown jewel of its empire. Marx wrote, quote, "The profound hypocrisy and inherent barbarism of bourgeois civilization lies unveiled before our eyes, turning from its home, where it assumes respectable forms, to the colonies where it goes naked." Close quote. The 1917 Russian Revolution, the centenary of which we marked last year, was anticipated and politically prepared in Marx's writings, and it gave a tremendous impetus to the struggle against capitalism and imperialism in South Asia. For 3 decades, from the concluding years of the First World War through 1947, South Asia was convulsed by an anti-imperialist upsurge. But, as Leon Trotsky and the Fourth International forewarned, the colonial bourgeoisie that grew up in the shadow of imperialism was hostile to the revolutionary mobilization of South Asia's toilers. Terrified for its own property and fearful of the growing militancy of the world working class, the rival incipient bourgeois of India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka negotiated the transfer of power in 1947-48, in which they inherited control of the British colonial apparatus, connived in the partition of South Asia on communal and ethnic lines. Not only were none of the burning problems of democratic revolution resolved, including the eradication of landlordism and casteism, the reactionary state structure was imposed that has frustrated rational economic development, enshrined communalism, fueled reactionary military strategic rivalry between the states of India and Pakistan, and served as a mechanism for imperialism to exercise its domination. 7 decades on, South Asia is a geopolitical and social powder keg. At the ICFI's previous May Day rallies, we have warned that South Asia and the Indian Ocean region have been sucked into the maelstrom of imperialist and great power conflict. For this, US imperialism is principally responsible. It has been waging a brutal neo-colonial war in Afghanistan for the past 17 years, and it has spared no effort to harness India to its reckless military strategic offensive against China. In the process, Washington has dramatically downgraded its relations with its traditional regional ally Pakistan, thereby overturning the regional balance of terror between South Asia's rival nuclear-armed powers. The Indian bourgeoisie, anxious for a leg up on Pakistan and China so as to realize its own predatory great power ambitions, has eagerly accepted Washington's offer to serve as a US imperialist scepter. This process has accelerated under the rule of Narendra Modi and his Hindu supremacist BJP, and with the most ominous consequences for the region and the world. Twice in the course of past 2 years, first in the fall of 2016 with Pakistan, and then last summer with China, India came to the brink of border war, what could have rapidly escalated into an all-out military confrontation, and one potentially involving US and other great powers. Much is made in the Western corporate media of the economic transformation of South Asia as it becomes enmeshed even more tightly with the global capitalist production chains. In reality, the fruits of capitalist development have accrued to a tiny capitalist elite and its political henchmen. For the masses, poverty, economic insecurity, and squalor prevail. The Bangladesh 4 million garment workers toil in sweatshops 6 and even 7 days a week, many earning as little as $65 a month. As part of his Make in India campaign aimed at wooing foreign investors, Modi has boasted that industrial wages in India are no more than a quarter those in China. Since mid-1990s, the number of Indian billionaires have increased 50-fold, from 2 to more than 100, and the share of income appropriated by the top 1% has swelled to 23%. The working class, however, is not just an object of exploitation. Among the tens of millions in South Asia toiling in the new globally connected industries and the broader masses, there is mounting social opposition. In India, recent months have seen a wave of strikes involving, among others, Tamil Nadu bus drivers and teachers, rural health workers in North India, and 1.5 million Uber and Ola drivers, as well as large protests by fishermen, peasants, and Dalits. In an alarmed article this week, India's former National Security Advisor, M.K. Narayanan, urged the government and its ostensible opponents in the political elite to take anticipatory steps to diffuse and, if need be, quell an unrest. The situation within the country, wrote Narayanan, appears far from reassuring. Protests and agitations have a life of their own, and underestimating their potential could be cause for grief. Hence, it might be worthwhile for the nation's leaders to pay heed to the ancient Chinese proverb, quote, "The wind sweeping through the tower heralds a storm rising in the mountain." Similarly, in Sri Lanka, workers, students, and rural and urban poor are rebelling against the brutal IMF-dictated austerity measures being implemented by Sirisena Wickremesinghe coalition government. The resurgence of class struggle is laying bare on what objective force the struggle against the bourgeoisie and its agent of war and the reaction must be based. The great question is to politically arm this developing working class movement with a revolutionary socialist perspective, program, and leadership. The mobilization of the working class as an independent political force requires an unrelenting struggle against the phony establishment left, parties, and trade union apparatuses and their pseudo-left allies. In India, the Stalinists have responded to the intensification of the class struggle by redoubling their efforts to subordinate the working class to the bourgeoisie, declaring their readiness to ally in the name of fighting the BJP with the Congress party, the traditional government party of the Indian bourgeoisie, and the party that spearheaded the drive to make India a cheap labor haven for global capital and to forge global strategic partnership with US imperialism. The Stalinist attitude toward the struggle and strivings of the working class is exemplified by their complete abandonment of the 13 MARUTI Suzuki car assembly plant workers who have been jailed for life on frame-up murder charges. Employers in India now routinely threaten workers with doing a MARUTI Suzuki, that is savagely repressing a challenge to poverty wages and brutal working conditions in concert with the police, the courts, and the political establishment. Yet the Stalinists treat the jailed MARUTI Suzuki workers as lepers, censoring any mention of their plight in struggle for their fear if it would disrupt their cozy relations with employers and the Congress party. In Sri Lanka, the role of the pseudo-left is no less pernicious. They lined up in support of the regime change operation that Washington joined with Delhi, orchestrated 3.5 years ago, to get rid of a right-wing president deemed too close to China, hailing the common candidate as a democratic alternative. Now that the mass struggles have erupted against the pro-austerity, pro-imperialist government they helped bring to power, they are doing everything to isolate and smother them. Above all, they seek to prevent the working class from constituting itself as an independent political force, advancing its own socialist solution to the social crisis and rallying the oppressed toilers behind it in the fight for a workers' and peasants' government. At this May Day 2018 rally, the ICFI urges workers around the world to intensify the campaign to win the freedom of the MARUTI Suzuki work class struggle war prisoners. We urge workers and youth to join with us in building a socialist anti-war movement across the reactionary state boundaries of South Asia as part of a global working class-led movement against the imperialist violence and imperialism, the source of all want and war. And last but not least, I urge all those listening today to join the ICFI. Workers around the world face fundamentally the same problems and common enemy, and will increasingly be drawn into the struggle against austerity and war that spill across boundaries and continents. But the objective unity of the working class must find conscious expression in the building of a world party of socialist revolution. The ICFI is that party.